Hi guys, good morning.
Good morning, Alicia. How you doing?
Hello. Good, seeing you even better.
Yeah, good times. Just have our Friday morning party. It's the best thing to do
Yeah,
it on Friday since it's
it's
the best of
afternoon
the
for
work
me. Am
week.
I am I allowed to start drinking already? It's Friday 3:30, so
I mean, there's a time when you're not supposed to be drinking.
there's 5 o'clock somewhere.
You don't know what's in this cup every morning. You think it's coffee, but we'll just keep that between me and me. Hey, I'm in Vegas, right? So what happens here can stay here, and nobody needs to know.
Can stay in the jar.
Morning, Peg, Kenny.
Good morning.
Cool. So, welcome everyone. Good morning. I'm gonna start off like usual with a little round table. I want to go over for I want to go over some of the new stuff I'm doing with the learning management system, some of the coursework creation capabilities, and how I'm kind of looking at it strategically from curriculum development for some of the new products that we have coming out. And I think you're just having gone through this cycle a couple times now. There's a lot of redundant and efforts and inefficient. It's not like intentional, but generally, as we work on creating education for different products, there's lots of different groups that have resources to work on lots of different areas of educational need, and things just it kind of pulls things naturally in this like splintered and fragmented direction. And so we'll have like an effort to we've got to get something together for this team, and they have some great educational resources that are help you to put together education. And so you start working on something for that, maybe one internal enablement for one group, and then there's another group and they've got resources that come help you, and they want internal enablement that's probably very similar, but it's generally happening in a separate project. And so some resources have to be applied to project A and some resources have to be applied to project B. And then we start working on the HOL, and that's decoupled from these other efforts. And partner portal needs something, and then something for GSS, and then something for and a lot of this has a really benefit, I think, from having a nice common center, and it's a little difficult to get out in front of that. And so I'm hoping now, with some of the stuff that I'm working on, for me anyways, as I approach this process, I think this time, with some of the new Tanzu products, trying to approach it a little differently from the beginning. But I started to get a little further into that before I stopped and paused. And so I want to talk about that stuff on the call today. But before I start diving into it, I wanted to, let's say, do a little roundtable or just keep it open-ended. Anyone have anything you want to share, or questions, or just shout outs, or what have you? So I'll don't hesitate to just, if you do, just shout out at any time. If I start talking before you get your point in, or question out, or what have you, just yell. I'll probably just start rolling, but don't hesitate, because I'd like to keep it as conversational as possible. Sometimes when I get rolling, I just keep rolling, but please, again, don't hesitate to, if you just shout out on the call, I'll stop, and eager to make sure we everybody has a chance to ask or share any points or questions, right? So thanks a lot for everyone for being on. Let me share my desktop. Show screen 3. Cool. So hopefully, okay, great. So I think if you were here last week, we're talking about the new Modern Apps Ninja stuff. Let me pull up my incognito browser so I can be in student mode here. And so we put out this prototype learning management system. I'm on the dashboard here. Put it on the modernapps.ninja URL, or so you can visit it at modernapps.ninja, sign up, and look at the courses that are available there. And this has been actually very enlightening for me to use this, because one thing I didn't anticipate as somebody who's been authoring content and developing courseware is having this as a tool to develop materials has been transformative for me. Like, I didn't anticipate. I thought, oh, that's cool. We can slap the lab guide into, put a little catalog here and maybe have a minimal thing for the lab guide. And that'll be nice. But as I got into actually using it as an authoring tool, it's really helps me to be able to wrap my head around what I think are really better ways of structuring content, better ways of getting better content out earlier. So wanted to go through a couple of the course elements that we have here. And one of the things in particular I wanted to highlight is the Tanzu Mission Control 101 here is aligned. I built this really, really close to the hands-on lab. And so that was like, I really like the way this came out, because the hands-on developing a courseware to align with the hands-on lab, I think really hits a sweet spot, because I think we've gone and we develop our internal training, and then at some point we end up coming up with a hands-on lab. And we always like, oh, that's a really perfect spot for anybody to get started. And I think one of the magical things about hands-on lab for the VMware audience is that, we could take anybody from any background who's been the VMware audience and they've done a hands-on lab before. It mentally sets them up for success in the capacity, that they're moving forward with a hands-on lab. Like, what often happens in all types of courseware is people get into it and it gets in their head. They don't understand what's going on, and it just kind of causes them to freeze. And I think hands-on lab, you see people with vSphere admins take on all different type of, or vSphere backgrounds, take on all different types of totally new and foreign concepts. And I think there's this, if you're familiar with it, it's going to walk you through whatever it is that you're getting through. Even if you don't completely understand, you're going to get a thorough walkthrough of going through a bunch of different things and really get some exposure to the product. And it's something I think vSphere admins are very, very comfortable approaching, even if it's a complex or foreign subject. And so it's always been like this great, starting point. But I think some of the deficits or things that it's missing have made it a bit challenging to use, because it's like, how do we know if somebody's used it or not? If I schedule a training with, a customer, and that customer has 5 or 10 staff that come, how do I know if they have or haven't done the HOL? On one hand, if I ask them and depend on them to have that background knowledge, it's inevitable that someone coming to the class won't have done it. We don't have a way of really tracking or verifying. And so I think, it's just, it's such a wonderful thing. But what would be maybe a nice element, what if we could really turn it into a proper course with proper grading and proper tracking, and say, actually have the ability to align some lessons around the mini great lab guides. And then I think it really helps the HOL, us to use an existing asset that's incredibly powerful, and really build on it. And in that way, even something like the HOL can fit in what I really think its ideal place is as we, develop additional curriculum. It makes sense that we have a common center, and build out from there. And I think that HOL methodology is great for that. And if we have that e-learning course kind of built around it, then that helps to really plug into a larger curriculum as we develop, for whether it's internal training, external curriculum. As we definitely, will go beyond the depth of where an HOL typically goes. But it's a great starting point. And so for TMC 101 here, let me show you side by side here so you can see docs.hol and show you how I built this, because I'm going to do this with several more HOL courses, and also for new stuff like we're working on the TKG internal training, and I'm bringing that in line from the beginning, working with the HOL team for TKG. So hopefully, as we develop the internal training and the HOL for TKG from the onset, it's going to be one streamlined effort together, rather than separate, fragmented, different resources. So to develop this TMC 101 course, I'm just going to pull up, oh, not lab. I didn't want to launch the lab. I want the document. I'm going to pull up the document so I can reference this to show, you know, how much like having an asset like the HOL here can, no, not PKS. I'm going to do TMC. I can just click on the right things, but having assets like the HOL can really, I think, help us to really get really great structured content around. And I want to go through this this course to show the student experience. So I'm logged in as a student here. Excuse me. So I'm going to start the course, and you know, one of the things that has just been really
is that Corona?
I'm not sure
Just making sure you're okay over there. You start coughing, people get a little tense.
Thanks for that, Orf. Appreciate it.
That's a fact.
But hey, Nate's got the ventilator, so Nate's already been buying stockpiling ventilators. So if anybody needs one,
we can FedEx drop ship that thing. Awesome, Good to know.
So as you hopefully could kind of see from this format here, the authoring tool, and we'll look at the authoring tool, but it looks similar, you know, to this and that. It's really easy to break your content down, and you're encouraged to break your content down into little sections. And one of the things I love about the edX portfolio is, or edX platform, is there isn't another learning management platform on the market that comes close to the level of research that's going into this from a pedagogical standpoint, right? So in terms of, you know, how do we do education better, right? There's tons of research, you know, top university researchers and data scientists just use this platform extensively, and it has such a robust open source community. They do things like, you know, we study the efficacy of e-learning courses and build that naturally into the tool set that you use here. And so little things, you don't think about it that way, but it helps you structure courses in ways that really have strong data-driven science behind them to show these ways are working at scale. But it helps us tremendously too, because what happens, like when we started with PKS, right? First, you know, I started developing the training for PKS before PKS was launched, and we didn't have anything. And, you know, we had like sessions from VMworld, and we had some internal webinars, and they're hour-long, you know, chunks. And you know, inevitably you go and you try to like, okay, well, we're going to do our own course. Let's get an Excel spreadsheet, and you start to come up with a curriculum. Okay, day 1, hour 1, hour 2, hour 3, and then you try to fit, you know, what you have into there, and like you've got some slides that work, but inevitably as you start to structure your content for a 1-day training or 2-day or 3-day training or whatever it is that you're doing, you find that all these different webinars that we have, and they weren't in the right format. And since you're trying to fill up your traditional kind of style calendar, which is hour 1, hour 2, hour 3, nothing fits. And you end up with all this content you don't know how to use especially well. And there's a lot of good content. How do we apply it? How do we not have to re-record? And how do we make, and this modularity that's introduced here, I think it really goes a very, very long way. And like, I built this course out of just existing materials, and I feel like it really came out like they were purpose built for the course. But I think I should get into the course itself, so we can walk through it real quick, and you can hopefully see where I went through with this. So I've already, with this user, I've already started it, so it's starting me where I left off last time I was logged in. So let me make sure I go to the very beginning here. So we'll start off with welcome to the course. And it's just you have these learning pathways in here, and you can just sequence your different information. So there's bite-sized snippets on each page. This introduction is a little text heavy because it's just the introduction section. But in general, as you get through it, a recommendation is, you know, have some videos, keep them relatively short into sections. And maybe have some other interactive type of exercises. And there's lots of pre-built capabilities in the platform to help you do that. So prerequisites, blah, blah, blah. And So now I'm getting into the introduction to Tanzu mission control statement. I start off with the big picture. These little 2-minute videos. They're not great for engineering training, but I think one of the things that often happens in engineering training, you start to get into the weeds, and then it's very easy at that point to forget the forest for the trees. And one thing I love about these little 2-3 minute videos, it keeps you in check on what the forest is, not just the tree that you happen to be inspecting at that moment, right? It's a great little use of that, and it fits in well. And then we had Bosky already had this 5-minute sort of overview video of TMC out there. This is a great fit to put in this section that kind of introduces the high level, but a level deeper than that 2-minute intro video. And took the, this is actually directly from the Tanzu Mission Control website. I thought there's an FAQ there, and it actually happens to be, a really nice little interactive learning exercise if you structure it. So I took the FAQ and I used those expanding blocks. So now you can go through these blocks and be like, please click through these, and nice little interactive learning exercise that has really ideal snippets of information on wrapping my head around what the product is, what it does, as I go progressively deeper. And then after that introductory section, you can add a few questions. And one of the great things I like about like coming up with questions in this context is this. So this introduction section here is exactly aligned with how the HOL is aligned. So we have intro to Tanzu, mission control, architecture, cluster provisioning, attaching clusters, hierarchy. So if I go into the hands-on lab, right? If you look at our module 1, it actually follows the same exact sequence. And I actually structured those little videos, and this already had slides to already have a good flow here. And when I went to look at the different internal videos that we had, there are several different internal videos that use these same slides. Of course, when they make the HOL, they're going to try to use, the current relevant slides. And so really, I was able to almost on a slide-by-slide basis, just come in and find a video that aligned, a section of the video that aligned with a given slide, slice it out, and then I have that module for the organization, and the organization's already done. And so it made it really easy for me to get the organization for the course to align with that. And so, and then when you think about creating an assessment, when a lot of times, like, I'll have an hour-long chunk or a day-long chunk or a whole course and thinking about how do you create test questionnaires. But when you actually have, a 3-minute chunk or a 5-minute chunk, and you're like, I need to create some questions. And really, to create questions, if I'm doing a questionnaire for each of these little chunks, which I am, just question, then I only need 2 to 4 questions for each one. And at the end of it, I have a really quite a few questions, right? But now when I'm thinking, if I'm going to make an assessment here, it needs to be the content that was in this 5-minute video, or the the cut and paste from the FAQ section, and it makes it really easy to get a couple questions in there that are good questions in the assessment. So like let's go back to the assessment here. So and there's actually there's courses on how to build these courses in edX. I actually built these courses just from clicking around. It's a pretty simple interface to learn how to use. I figure out how to get the grading to where it grades everything just the way you want to automatically, and so on. And so people can come through and really have a self-service experience and get their grading. And there's a lot of different type of questions that are available. So we have different things that we just took from the information that was there. And this is 101, so it's not meant to be incredibly challenging, but little things like we included a lot of that text was from like the data sheet, and the data sheet said, benefits of Tanzu mission control, and had 3 bulleted points: listening, developer, these 3, right? And people just had to go through those materials. And so it really makes for, good. And you can also put thorough answers in the questions once people see true. So some of these, maybe not on this one so much, but some of them, it's a really opportunity to combine learning and questioning at the same time to help them. Like this one was kind of like that, right? I wanted something to refresh people's memory about some of the key ideas. And And this is if it clearly very easy for a multiple point question. You see this, you're going to realize all of the above is answer after you look at it, but you look at it, right? And you say, oh, it's just a nice reminder in this question to kind of help reinforce the same knowledge that you hope you want them to carry with them, the student. So let's see, I'm not going to go through every single thing here, but then we got into the architecture. I think you saw as we were over here, we got into this architecture section. So Bosky had this is from one of the internal webinars. So I found this slide, and one of the nice things is, since I already had that slide laid out in the HOL, when I went to the video, it made it easy for me to find the associated snippet, because I just clicked through the different video, speedily, rather than going through it all until I saw this slide. And once I saw this slide, I was really quick and easy for me to find out, okay, when did they start talking about the stuff on this slide? And it was just perfect. Right, I snipped it out, listened to this little section to make sure, since it was recorded for internal, there were a few different things, like very minimal, that I had to edit out from some of these videos just to make sure we didn't have, anything sensitive or not worded appropriately go out. But for the most part, it was really easy to find, the section around the slide and then snip it out. And then we ended up with a nice, let's see, how long is this? So in this case, it's a 3.5-minute video clip. And then we go into assessment based on that. And then we go next, and so on and so forth. So pretty straightforward. And I think a lot of the HOLs are very similar. They have slides and introduction in the first module, and then as you get into module 2, that's usually where the hands-on exercises started. So let's go back to the outline, and so we found some cool things in the hands-on exercises here. So we get into the intersection is just the slide section of the HOL. And then as we get into the lab exercises, so I was also able to find, like, we had several demos around doing different functionalities. So if you look in this initial section of HOL, cluster lifecycle management, what is it that the student does? They go and they create a cluster and they attach a cluster. So that exact sequence of doing things was already in some of our internal webinars. So I went and sliced out a section of a demo where someone went in and created a cluster, and they talk through it as they do it. And so it goes from that initial section where we're speaking from slides and talking about theory to where now we can incorporate a demo just ahead of where the student actually goes and does the same thing. Right. So here, this is like, I think, 5 minutes or something of the demo. And then after the demo, we say, oops, let's go. And I'm not actually doing anything to the HOL here. I don't want to, now for some of the slides, like there was a little bit of content I pasted over to that introductory section, but I don't want to re-paste content that's already in the HOL, with the exception, like I said, maybe that first section, I think some students may prefer, going through a format of piece by piece for that initial, where it's just like a long, PDF of some slides pasted there with text. So some of that may be a little bit redundant. For the most part, though, when it comes to things from the HOL, I don't want to replicate the text or the effort here. So we'll say, go complete module 2. Once you complete module 2, we have an assessment. Assessment's quite easy to make, because now I can just look at module 2, and there's already a whole bunch of text. You can see exactly what the students do, right? And so we're able to easily make questions, and can now take that section of the HOL where we have some knowledge validation afterwards. And oh, this is one thing I wanted to show you, which is cool. So one of the question types, there's several question types. We'll log into the authoring interface in just a second here, but one of these question types allows you to allow people to do this, which is great, because I got a TMC and there's so many things that are point and click, and there's so many things that are so easy. You're like, how do you ask a question about somebody starting an inspection? You click on the inspections tab. I can't say, where do you click, to start an inspection? There's but it's really nice when you have a UI product to be able to do this. So I can go and say, please click on the area that you would select to attach an existing cluster. Right, click on the area, submit. Oh, look, I got a grade, and we can see that underneath the surface here, we're able to highlight a section of this image that allows us to grade on student mouse clicks. And we've got, what is this one here? An image flow click, we need to adjust nodes in the worker pool. So we got to click the edit button first. Oops, edit, and then submit. And then we've got that. And so that actually, you can kind of bring that pretty far. So to, when I was doing the conformance, I said conformance is kind of, it's so simple in the UI. You can ask theory questions about it pretty easily, but when you're asking practical questions about conformance, it's like, it's so simple in the UI. And so, of course, you can go through, you know, the 300 different assessments, but that's not exactly appropriate for this level of content either. And so what I really love with the assessment here is we actually just really created, starting here with this, really just created, like, you actually have to do it. You have to go create an assessment through just these fake clicks, but you actually have to walk through the entire sequence to pass. Hey, do you know how to do this? Do you want to validate your knowledge? Well, this allowed me to create that entire thing. So click on the area of navigation, you select define conformance features, inspections, submit. You know, now we're on the inspections page. Click where we need to create an inspection. We need to go new inspection, submit. Then please click where you need to select the cluster. You know, pretty obvious. It's a pretty basic question, but I think in the context of the flow, it really, you know, makes sense. Submit. So we got that right. And now we can see we've got our cluster selected. Now we want to go select light inspection. Where would I click for that? Click submit. Oh, got that right. Now I've got my light inspection. Now where do I run the inspection? Submit. And then now we want to see the inspection details. Where do I click for that? Right. And then now I can see the inspection details, which for light inspections is pretty basic, but there is a diagnostics and detailed report you can download. So I have here, you know, where would I download the detailed report? I've got kind of a hint up here. I'm not trying to make this too challenging for, you know, but just show people, you know, make sure they've got it. And now we've validated the knowledge, and we can go to our progress report and see how am I doing on this course. So I haven't done with this user, I haven't done everything, all the different assessments yet. So right now I'm overall 50%, but with this user, if I go through and finish all these assessments, then we'll see at some point once they're finished whether I have a passing grade. And this is set to a perpetual timeline. So there's no timeline that a student has to have this done by. If they start on it and finish it later, they'll be able to track their progress. And with this, we want to do like, not like VMware certified, yada, yada, but like I took a course, I got a grade report and finished all my homework. I get a certificate of completion for completing that course. And so I've got at least temporary authority to do that. So I'm going to start doing that. We'll see how long it is before one of the people who wants to make sure that nobody other than them does things like that will come and find me. But hopefully we'll keep that alive. I got a lot of support from management to do that. And yeah, so I'm going to do the same thing with like TKGs. We developed a TKG. I'm going back into the existing PKS HOL and really hope we do something similar here. You know, I think at the end of the day, I think it's cool. I think it's wonderful. My opinion, you know, really doesn't matter. What really matters is how do the students respond to this? Is it something that our field, our audience, all of you, you know, feel I didn't have an option to put something like this on a learning management system in this way before. We had some internal systems that, as you know, nobody's, I think, pretending Hive is the most cutting edge system. And then because of that, there's a lot of other various competing learning management systems that are in different pockets. But there wasn't anything that I could just go to and be like, hey, I want to have something that I can author, I can access a great learning interface, and I can get, you know, structured learning material out in the format that, you know, at least a good starter format that I think is meaningful. But let me pause there before I keep going and see any questions, comments so far. Cool. So let's keep rolling then. And again, don't hesitate. Just if I started talking before you had a chance to get your point in, just definitely speak up. Now, about the certifications, or not certificates of completion, I gotta be careful about that. So one of the downsides of a learning management system for me, and one of the reasons why I was hesitant to embrace one, is I think yeah, there's tons of awesome stuff out there where you go and you learn in the web browser. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's brilliant. I think that type of stuff should be incorporated. But when you're a practitioner and you go learn how to code and you do your whole, like I learned how to code in a web browser, and then you go to actually try to execute with that in the real world, you realize there's a whole lot of additional things that I needed to do to really make that realistic. That I didn't know how to do. And so I think for us in VMware, GitOps is the absolute center of everything. But how to properly learn GitOps for people in our position, it's really difficult because we're not operators, right? And you think about like when we go work with customers, we have to try as quickly as possible to establish the rapport. Look at us as the experts that should be teaching operators. Meanwhile, our customers that we're talking to are 24/7 full-time operators, and we're not. Right? And we go in and we, for a long time, have been able to go into our customers and be like, we know how IT runs. We know how you guys do things, and so we whether it's from our years of experience doing consulting and sales work, or whether it's at some point we worked in operations, but we know how operations is run. And now, we walk into, doing operations in such a fundamentally different way, like that. How do we capture that rapport? How do we lead customers into a fundamental reshaping of how they do IT operations? And one of the things I think we just don't think about enough is we go through all this technical training. How do I turn this knob? How do I turn this knob? How do I turn this knob? And one thing that will never happen is nobody in production is ever going to go start turning knobs without processes, right? All of our audience knows, every single one of our customer knows, is you don't go start clicky on a production system and not document it, not ask for approval, not have those systems that allow it to be manageable and documented, right? And so everybody's got ITIL, right? And we're thinking about, cloud native often when we go to these courses and what's a container, but at the same time, you can go sell Kubernetes to your customer till they're blue in the face, and maybe you can get them understanding it well, but they're not going to go and install it and set it up without having a process methodology for doing it, right? They're going to go to ITIL if that's what they've been using, right? And figure out how to contort. So I think, GitOps is the answer to, like, we did ITIL as the center of kind of everything before, the underlying blanket. Before we could apply or click on anything in production, we had to have a way of getting it approved and getting it documented, right? And so we have configuration management systems and ITIL and all that. And then of course, doing infrastructure as code, you have this ability to use Agile as the alternative to ITIL. Instead of a traditional configuration management system where you check in, here's how I did something, right? If you produce the code that actually creates the effect, that's a far more effective way of doing the same thing. And GitOps is, like I said, it's a center of everything, because people coming from the operator side, they don't understand most of the Git courses that talk about the whole developer world. But if you limit it down to infrastructure as code, and lock it through that lens, you can really have operator focused examples. And I think it's really important is that when people start working in GitOps environments, they are not going to be the Scrum Master. And I think it's a tendency, if someone comes to a training, I need to learn about DevOps, I come from a traditional IT background, I need to help administer this stuff, they naturally feel like I've got to know like what a Scrum Master knows, because I've got to be an admin, when in reality is like, most everybody there, this is going to be the place where you check in your Puppet script and your Chef script or what have you. And for you, just like the developer who's doing the fancy new eyeball tracking code for the websites and whatever it is that the developer is working on, someone's working on artificial intelligence. You think they want to be a GitHub Scrum Master? No, they want to focus on the code that's their artificial intelligence. They know how to use Git in that they know how to check their file in, right? And let somebody else worry about, the Scrum mastering, right? And I think ops doesn't oftentimes get that perspective, is that participating in this doesn't mean you have to understand everything. It doesn't mean that you need to be a Scrum Master. Where you start is really as simple as, I need to check in my file. My task in this team now, where we're starting to do more infrastructure as code as we get started, is going to be, we've got some Puppet scripts, we've got some Bash scripts, we have things like that I've always done, and now I really need to get to the point where I can check in my stuff. and I understand. And one of the hard things about that is that's not something you can learn in a course you take. You know, oh, I'm going to go take the 101 course. You take it once, and then you go on your merry way, right? And if you're not messing with Git on a regular basis, that's gone. And we think about that rapport that we need to establish with our customers and the leadership we need to be able to establish. How do we do things in this pets versus cattle way, right? Well, Git is, and infrastructure as code is a center of that. And we need to have a way to really have it become, you know, familiar with us, just like we can go into our customers who are doing a traditional operation and say, I understand how IT works, and so I can help you lead, right? Well, if you walk in, for most of our audience, maybe not most of the people on this call, but for most of the VMware engineers out there, can we walk into a DevOps shop that's really doing it and say, I understand how IT is done, right? There's a small amount of us, you know, that can say, you know, have that comfort level in that context, but yet we need to get all our customers to the point where their entire operation is like that DevOps shop, right? So how do we do it? And I think, you know, integrating Git into everything we do is the right way to do it. Because like what we've done in PKS Ninja, let's see GitHub, right? And not to belabor the point, but again, it's just, you know, lab guides in GitHub natively. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I was afraid to adopt a learning management system, because I want to force people through this interface, right? Because if I have to learn a pull request in the context, like I'm going to a Git class and they're telling me about, you know, hash values and heads and how to like go to different heads of the different commits and, you know, all these different things that you might need to learn as you get comfort with Git, not when you get started, you know, learning it, right? You don't need to learn the theory of how a bicycle stays upright from a physics standpoint when you learn how to ride a bicycle. Right? Kids don't understand that, and it probably would not help them if you know, or I'm certain, you know, it's not going to help the kid if you got a 5-year-old trying to ride a bicycle and you have to go and explain the physics of how they explain are they going to be upright. You just get them going, right? You know, and here it's like the context of a pull request is really simple. I want to add a period to this sentence. Right? I go in here and the sentence doesn't have a period right here. I can go ahead and add that period, and I'm going to use a pull request to do that. And where was the spot? Maybe I did have a period. Well, maybe I was here after emissions. I didn't remember a period there probably, but I want that in the bold. So now you can, you know, add the period, and if you walk through the very simple pull request. And so as we've promoted the PKS Ninja, and through the experience we have with PKS Ninja, what we had is like, I had a lot of really great participation, which is really just a lot of what I want, which is mainly some people are going to get deeper into this, but for the most part, people want to use it like they use an HOL, like they use another training. You know, they're interested maybe in the other thing, but now they need to know about Valero, right? They've got something they need to know about Valero, so they're going to come in and look at the Valero lab. And so I said, come do a lab. And when you do, if you see a problem, if you can't get through it, you know, open an issue ticket so we know. Or, you know, click on the little web browser editor here and edit this way. Or, you know, if you know how to, right, we want to encourage you to go through the full pull request process. So we start people here by, you know, getting them to learn how to do the pull request through the automated method through the web browser. And this does a full fork and pull request automatically for you. It's a great way to introduce new people to the concept. And so we ask people, and when we did the competitions, we would say, if you want to get credit for the competition, you have to go into this validate file. And I've got this one doesn't have a populated validate file, but it's just a guest book, right? You just it just has your name and the date you completed it in the template, and you go and you enter your information in that guest book, and it's a way to teach that student the pull request. And so most of the students get that far, and far less students get to the next step, which is the what I call the student folder. And so we have this thing, create your student folder. And so what the purpose of this is when people are first starting to learn how to do a pull request, they're going to make mistakes, right? And when you of course, anyone can create their own Git repo and do pushes all day long, but that doesn't give you the experience of actually having to go through a pull request on a public entity. And so we created a dedicated repository for this and said, hey, you know, if you're going to go through create your student folder, what you'll do is you come here, create a folder, do a pull request to create a folder with your GitHub username. And ergo, everybody can have their own folder here. And so my intent was always that if you're going to take class 1 and in this particular class about Valero, right, for example, you're probably going to have to create some file, maybe make a YAML file or something, right? The idea I always had was whenever somebody does something they create, have them save their homework. What I call save their homework steps. And this, I never implemented this yet. I'm hoping we'll do this now. And so you go and you create some YAML file. Right? You're not thinking about Git or GitOps or anything else. You're thinking about to save your homework step. I'm going to go save my homework in my folder. You do a pull request to do it, right? You can potentially some of them do it through the web browser, but when you're in this motion, you're actually really encouraged to do the git clone, fork, push, pull, request, what have you, because you may have a file that you created, and now you're not just pasting in text. You actually are maybe uploading files, and then by merit of that, right, if students complete courses, we can go and validate their work here. But anybody, if we were to give somebody a credential, that's nice, right? And it'd be really cool if we make these folders, because these folders are really easy for us to tell people how to structure them, because they're going to follow instructions. So we can have these folders set up to where it's very nice. Their homework is organized by course very, very nicely and exposed into a dashboard on GitHub.io. So when people go to their personal profile page, they can see a really nice GitHub.io dashboard, click and drill in to see different assignments. And I think it's especially pertinent because we want to get a lot of these assignments to be, contribute to our documentation, which means you have to do a pull request, which means you didn't just complete an assignment that some peer said was okay. You completed an assignment that somebody with administrative authority here said, this is sufficient for our public facing website. And we're not trying to be especially fancy. The bar is not the super highest thing, but it really says something about the student. On one hand, student may do some homework. On the other hand, is we have more and more homework that is, like we're going to have students issue triage or help to resolve triage tickets, how to help to maintain and upgrade and add new materials. And then also even to get to the point where they're helping us on the administrative side, where we have, Tecton pipelines that help to manage our GitOps automations to make the program run. And so I really want to get, that student folder thing to the next level. And that leads me into how I plan to do the course completion certificates. Because on one hand, our learning management system, it actually can do all that very elegantly all by itself. It has all this, but I decided to go out of band. So if you go to github.com/modernapps ninja-verify, like I'm giddy about this system. I don't like bragging about things, but like I've wanted to do this. I've conceived this system for the past couple of years in my head, and I finally made it the other day, and it turned out to be so damn simple and elegant that I love it, right? So how do we create, how do we request? So the intent is like at the end of every course that offers a completion certificate of completion, it's going to say, well, the first thing, you only have to do this once, and for all amount of courses, you have to get your participant repository. So just like we had the students folder before, now we'll have a participant repository. We have people open the issues here, and it's github.com/modernappsninjas, and then it would be /your username. And so rather than like everything in Modern Apps Ninja, that used to be a folder is now actually becoming its own repository, like a microservice. For a few reasons, but one is that we're using tooling, common CI/CD tooling to manage these, and as we get more and more into the microservices world, the CI/CD tooling is really optimized to have these assets as repos rather than subfolders in a repo. But anyways, so you get your student repository, and you could put your homework on there or what have you, but if the very minimum requirement is, as soon as I'm done with this course, I go to my grade report, I screenshot it, I put that into, up on in my student folder. So in my student folder, I have one that aligns with this course number. This is course number, COU MC 8251. So in my student repository, you'll see a folder that says COU 8251. And in there is some set of files that whoever authored that course will say, you need to put these set of files in there, right? And it would include a snapshot of the completed grade report. And And then so you configure your participant repository, you get everything. Now, having a student repository is great, but you need an independent third-party validation service. So how do we do that, right? We just, we created a repo, or modernapps.ninja/verify, course ID verify.json, right? And so this is a centrally controlled JSON file that's a guest book, right? So in order to add my name to this, it's got to go through a pull request and someone else has to administer it. So it by itself, just with, there's no code and there's no asset that you need to have a complete independent verification system here. Because on one hand, anyone can come. So on this, there'll be a URL structure like this: verify, course ID, verify.json. So for the course, and if I want to say, how do I get a certificate of completion? Well, you've got to go here and you've just got to add your record to the guest book. So I created a little JSON. And so on one hand, people may not be comfortable with JSON, but I think one of the things, again, that the whole HOL, the existence of all those HOL labs demonstrate is if you can spoon people through consistent actions, they can spoon feed through things very easily. Right? They can go through things that they're not comfortable with if it's a very consistent action. And these are very, very consistent actions. They're doing something very, very straightforward. Right? And so we show here, like, here's an example. If we want to add somebody named fake GitHub username 3, here's how we add them. And you don't have to learn all about JSON. You just copy one row and you enter the row. And then in order for them, again, to just the way Git works, right? They're going to have to submit a pull request. Someone's going to have to see this. Someone can very easily click and see, okay, they said they have a picture that shows their completed grade report, what have you. And I'm going to click approve. And if for some reason they didn't get the syntax right, that's just a normal thing that our Scrum admins are used to dealing with. Oh, if you've got the comma or you added an extra comma in this, you can work through that. And then you have them in this JSON file. And GitHub already lets you probe these with an API. So if you want to programmatically go through this record and say, do I verify, or have a form somewhere that you could enter that probes this file by API, I mean, that's just a native capability of GitHub. And so with no code, no asset, you have this verification system, and you can do it for anything, right? I mean, I was thinking about this internally, like, how do we get, one of the problems we have with our internal training is I can't teach people Modern Apps Ninja content because they don't even know how to do SDDC yet, because we haven't really taught them that yet. I mean, and that's no offense to anybody who's taught SDDC, because it's a difficult problem of, if we're teaching people to do, and when I say SDDC, I mean specifically, I think part of our message with SDDC has been pets, kettle, infrastructure as code. And I don't think we've, most of our base of engineers have learned well how to do infrastructure as code outside of, you can write a Puppet or Chef script for very select things, but how to really make it useful around a significant platform or function to really get a platform that you can do, cattle and not pets. And so it's like, how do I teach people about my thing when I've got to sit there and make sure that they understand infrastructure as code first? And now I can't really teach them about the modern apps. If I could, if everybody, learned infrastructure as code, even for the ops people to start to actually take that bigger picture into seeing, what are the devs doing with their code life cycles? Well, if we understand an operational centric use case there, then it's really dramatically easier to start to understand what the developers are doing. I think that's a right path to lead people through. But got to get them doing the GitOps. And so I was thinking, even for any internal training, it doesn't have need to have anything to do with Modern Apps Ninja. Maybe we could start having students, go in order to get, in Hive, in order to get their complete button, go and do something on GitHub to request it like this. So that way they've had to actually walk through a pull request and they don't have to think to do it because it's going to be spoon fed like an HOL. But I think the intent is if people start doing a pull request every time they finish a little course, even if they're walk through it every time, I mean, think about what that means is, someone goes through 10 different courses over the next 2 or 3 months, just little short courses, right? And then they walk into a customer site and that customer site is thinking about how to do GitOps, and how to check in files and what does this mean to me? They've already done a bunch of pull requests. They're already starting to get really comfortable with, okay, you clone it, you put the pull, and they never had a Git training course because, eventually they may be somebody who's going to start to become the Scrum Master, right? But that's never where anybody's going to start. And trying to get people to learn Scrum Master concepts before they even know how to check in a file, it's really counterproductive. That's like how most Git courses are. You go in and they really try to teach you a lot of complex things about it instead of first thing I need to do is how does it feel to work in an environment that's run by GitOps? Just to participate in it, because that's where I'm going to start, and to get used to what this means. And so I'm hoping is like none of this courseware. I mean, no, I'm going to have some Git specific courseware, of course, but in general, the point is don't come in and start with a Git course. The point is come in and take your, Tanzu Mission Control 101, and we're going to walk you through a very spoon-fed way of doing a pull request if you want to get and if you want to get that certificate of completion. That's one of the reasons why I love having this, is it's like people are going to want their certificate of completion. And I can use that as a wedge to get them happily motivated to eagerly walk in through this process of doing, something that is hard to motivate people to do generally if it's foreign to them, right? Is like, oh, forks and right, all this stuff that you have to do. And so hopefully this will really get people using the GitOps concepts more, and then we can just keep adding to it. So I talked for a long time there without taking a breath, and now we're getting to the top of the hour. So hopefully I actually have come to a pausing point before it already being over the end of the call. So we can actually have a little time for discussion and Q&A at the end here.
I've got a comment for you, Art. I love that, this is Peg, by the way. I love the comment about having the completion of other courses operate in the same way, so that when you submit that you've understood the content on something that isn't even developed as part of this, you get pulled into this process again. Sort of that little touch in a repetitive way is kind of the key to this, just having that experience. So that would be pretty cool if we could do something like that.
Thank you, Peg. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I feel like for me, that was it. It was like I was using Git, I think like a lot of people do when they first start, is you create your own repo and then you just push everything up. And then when I started, I actually didn't even do any pull requests myself really on public repos until I started the PKS Ninja thing, and then had a bunch of other people go through that same experience. They'd never done a pull request on a public repo. And so it's been, and as I went through it, it's like, this is just like riding a bicycle. It's so foreign and complicated if you don't think about it hardly ever, and you've never had that experience. But it's so easy if you just have a reason to touch it on a semi-regular basis. And then once you do that, like the bicycle, it doesn't go away. And at least that aspect of participating in that Git basic participation, I think just becomes cemented. So let's see. I'm working now on, like I said, getting TKG into this this format here. Well, hopefully before the weekend's over. In this closing summary section here for these courses, I'm going to add the instructions for this course. If you want to get your certificate of completion for this course, go and do ABC, and that will be added here. Hopefully, like I said, before the weekend's over. Working on getting a very similar TKG course. That one might take a little bit longer because, I mean, the HOL effort hasn't even really started yet. So I'm going to try to knock out, work closely with the HOL team to try to come up with, the internal training will probably have to be ahead of HOL, but at least if we do it in concert, we'll keep it in sync and hopefully get something started that will benefit the HOL development. And as they advance HOL, then we'll bring it back and just have a nice synchronization between this and HOL. Then PKS, so going to bring the PKS HOL onto this as well. And the other thing too, so there's a Tanzu Mission Control 201 here that I'm still working on, that I think is really another nice pattern. Really just making use, because we have demo scripts, and there's always been demo scripts and things like that are produced by engineering, and we've always had the desire to, like, we need to use these in the training that we develop. And inevitably sometimes we do, but usually what ends up happening is like, well, when I developed my, got my spreadsheet together and I stated I needed a course that was, filled every hour out for 2 or 3 days, a lot of those didn't happen to fit exactly into what I was doing. So I couldn't really use the demo scripts. And so all of these different individual conformance inspections, fleet diagnostics, image policies, these link to lab guides. on Modern Apps Ninja here that are really just the demo scripts with this. The only thing I did is really some formatting changes. And so my intent with these is there's 6 different ones that cover 6, pretty much all the different key areas of the product, and they're really nicely aligned to give some exercises that, hopefully will go a little bit beyond the HOL in breadth. And once you have the structure here, just adding a little bit to them is pretty easy. And so these are started off as you pretty much just need kind to do these. And so these ones are not like a lot of other Ninja lab guides in that these don't have a specific lab environment they're tied to yet. And so you kind of have to know, and that's where I added this lab completion difficulty. I wanted there to be, before we had every single lab guide had to be perfect. You had to have a screenshot per mouse click level type of instruction. And there's a lot of documents that, we could never have and will never see the light of day if we retained that are still useful for a large part of our audience. And so I wanted to say, we can come in here and say we have different completion difficulties. This complete one means it's like an HOL. Regardless of how complex the topic is, the instructions I know are thorough enough to where it's going to spoon feed me through the instruction. And I know I'm comfortable and taking on a topic that might be challenging for me because I think I can get through the lab. So these ones are still in the partial state, which is really good, really useful for experienced engineers. But I want to get each of these to where you can log into the TMC hands-on lab and go through, right? Just like we do with the other lab guides, and do it all from the hands-on lab. And as we get those, then we will structure them into, where'd that go? So go back to my studio. Now we've got attaching unmatched namespaces, conformance inspections, fleet diagnostics, image policies, network policy, right? That's our 201 course right there. So if we take the same thing, and because the demo scripts are aligned that way, it means also a lot of our internal early training that came from engineer is aligned in a similar way. And so like I did with HOL, to go through and slice and dice some of those videos, we created this TMC 201 course. And all this does here is it says, go do that one lab guide, go do the other course. So it's really a sequence of several different courses. So if you want to take just the access policies course, you can take just that. But to get the 201 level across the board, it just goes through each of those different demo script-based lab guides. But I want to do the same thing I did with the HOL, where we add maybe a little bit of the presentation text, little text from data sheets or white papers, some short videos, then just kind of augment this lab guide to where it can be done in the HOL with just a little bit more information. Structure's already there, so it's very straightforward. I don't have to sit around thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to come up with? Is that cognitive load of like, what am I going to do is massive, right? And you have stuff like this that you can kind of roll with, and then we're reusing in existing materials. I really want to get that pipeline from the stuff engineering is doing to the stuff that we do, from internal enablement to partner enablement to customer enablement. It's all a very, very streamlined pipeline, and we're not doing 20 different independent efforts. It's taxing because it's hard as a content author when you're pulled into 3 different separately managed projects to come up with very similar but slightly different curriculum for slightly different platforms. And that's usually how it is. And so I'm hoping we get things centralized and good up front. I mean, it's definitely been a lot easier for me to create this content than it was to try to, work with a dedicated educational developer to get them trained up when we didn't have anything to begin with, and try to, come up. So I'm hoping this process works well for people. Any one of you can get your course authoring rights. Last thing here. So if you go to Modern Apps Ninja, so just go to Modern Apps Ninja. I'm already signed in, so it's not going to bring me to the homepage. But if you just go straight to Modern Apps Ninja, you see the option to create a sign in. Anyone can sign up. There's no restriction on that. Right now, I don't know of a way to like automate making your account admin or get the appropriate permissions. But if you just ping me Slack, ideally, if you're interested in getting access to the course authoring interface. And last thing, to get to the course authoring interface, it's going to be, first thing you want to do is log into modernapps.ninja. Make sure you're logged in, because if you don't, it's just going to redirect you. After you log in, it doesn't redirect you back to the course authoring interface. It redirects you back to the homepage. So once you're logged in, then you go to, I won't do it now, but you go to modernapps.ninja /edX-studio. Right, and this is the, or you could go to the port, but this is just the default port they run it in. And then you can see here the studio. This leads you to the course building interface once you're signed in. So the first thing you have to do is sign up. Once you sign up, ping me on Slack or something. I'll go in and add to where you have admin status. And then once you go to this interface, you'll be able to see the course authoring interface. And you're right, is I just looked at a couple of the courses that were already built to kind of get the sense of how to click through it. And then again on edX.org, there's very, very thorough courses of that will teach you all like very in depth of the different authoring capabilities, because there's the clicking on a region of an image, but you can have a custom JavaScript app that ties into the grading framework. So if you really want to do a custom exercise and have it integrated into the grading, you can have that. It'll say if you want students to enter Python sandbox code and have it calculate and have the grading be done as a result of the calculation on that code, that's native capability, right? And so there's tons of stuff you can do in here. So look forward to it. And I'll shut up there. I know I'm over the top of the hour. So thanks everyone for joining. If anyone wants to hang around and to chat more, I will hang around. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Art.
Thanks, Art. That was great.
Thanks, Alicia.